Well, folks, I'd like to introduce our next guest. He is Mr. Roger Aronoff. He's the Executive Director and the Editor of the Citizens Commission on National Security. Roger founded the Citizens Commission on Benghazi as well. He's produced and directed several documentaries and produced a weekly series on PBS called Think Tank with Ben Wattenberg. Roger, welcome back to the Conserve Commandos radio show.
Thank you, Nasser. Great to be with you.
Well, wonderful. Well, we want to talk to you about the article that you wrote. The state of U.S.-Israeli alliance is still strong. But give our folks, our viewers and listeners out there, what is it that you're doing at the Citizens Commission for National Security?
Well, the Citizens Commission on National Security began last year. Most of the people were part of the Citizens Commission on Benghazi that began 6 years ago. A group of retired admirals, generals, CIA people, former congressmen, a lot of expertise there, and we decided to do our own investigation on Benghazi at the time. But last year we formed it as a separate new organization, Citizens Commission on National Security, added a couple new members, and a couple people left us. One who sadly left us earlier, a few months ago, was Admiral James Ace Lyons, who I believe is well known to your audience, and he was our senior member and our guiding light, and just an incredible man who I grew to know and love very much and talk to him almost every day. But anyway, the idea was that we are a national security watchdog organization, and we are looking at a number of issues that affect America's national security. And we plan a series of events, and we recently held our first major event, though we've been up on our website, CC for Citizens Commission, ccnationalsecurity.org. It's been up since last June. But just last month, we held our first major event called the U.S.-Israeli Alliance and its National Security Implications. And it aired actually live for 5.5 hours, including 3 hours in prime time on JBS TV, which is the Jewish Broadcasting Service. It's on DirecTV, it's on Verizon Fios in parts of the country. It's really an outstanding network. When we told them what we were doing, they wanted to broadcast the entire event live, and that's what happened. We had Alan Dershowitz, and we had Ambassador Yoram Ettinger, a former Israeli diplomat. We had Cliff May of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. We had Claire Lopez and General Tom McInerney, Rand Fishbein, a former Senate staffer, and Steve Frank, a former civil appeals lawyer who was also on the board of the Lawfare Project, and Morris Amate, former State Department official who later became the head of AIPAC. So it was quite a lineup, and really a fascinating day of panel discussions. The host, Rabbi Mark Golub, who is the CEO and founder of JBS TV. So that's the broad outline of what we did. We have future ones planned that we are going to do on such matters as border security and how that affects our national security, election integrity, China, you name it. We're going to look at Iran. Is global warming really a national security threat? We don't think so, but I know a lot of people do. So, but just to give you an idea, so that's to answer your first question.
Are you privy to sort of anything that's happening with? I mean, we've been hearing throughout this whole thing that Jared Kushner, obviously, the President Trump's son-in-law, has been involved in a lot of different policies. The reshaping of NAFTA and how that really, turned out well. Also, I think centering some of the things with the initial talkings with, Mexico and the Mexican president. What's been happening, or are you hear sort of ears to the ground? Have you been hearing anything at all in terms of this sort of, Israeli-Arab, peace sort of, summit or agreement that's being tried by the Trump administration?
Yes, absolutely. They claimed to have a peace plan that they were ready to present, and then they decided to hold off until after April 9th, which is the date of the new Israeli elections, which has been complicated by the plans to indict Netanyahu.
Yes.
So that's an interesting aspect. So that was definitely one of the panel discussions that we had that day, the potential of the new peace plan. And generally, our group of experts felt that, why this time, after 7 other times that the Palestinians have rejected a statehood, and they're never going to get an offer as good as they got in either 2000 or 2008, when they were offered half of Jerusalem and 96% of the West Bank, and they rejected it every time. They've rejected it 7 times over the last century, really. And so now, with the Palestinian government divided, Hamas controlling Gaza, the Palestinian Authority controlling the West Bank area. So you have this situation where it's just not even believable that they're going to ever get a deal as good as the ones that they were offered most recently in 2008 when Ehud Olmert was the prime minister of Israel.
I'd say never underestimate the power of President Trump and what he's sort of working in the back. And obviously, like, he's got the people that are working on something out there. Hopefully, like you said, it hasn't worked the last 7 times that things have been offered to the Palestinians. Let's hope that the 8th time or whatever is going to be a charm.
Well, Nasser, unfortunately, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. We've lost contact with our guest, Roger Aronoff. Let's do this, Nasser. Let's take our break. Let's try to get reestablished with Roger after this. But you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Dr. Wright, Dr. Nasser Sheikh, and yours truly, Rick Trader. Don't go away. We're going to, as I mentioned, try to reestablish our contact with Roger Aronoff, Executive Director and Editor of the Citizens Commission on National Security. Don't go away. We will be right back. Terry, ask your question.
So, Roger, the question I was going to ask is also as part of the symposium that you had, what was the thought process of this growing BDS movement that's been coming on board on many college campuses? There's so many left-wing activists that are approaching, that it's going on in almost every college, university that you can think of. And not only on our college campuses, but also within, government entities itself, like, for example, the United Nations, and other, people as well. So this boycott, divestment, and sanctions, how has it affected Israel?
Well, it's really terrible. It's an extension of basically the 100-year-old Arab League boycott of Israel. That's sort of a modern-day incarnation of that is really a vessel for modern anti-Semites who want to portray Israel as some kind of apartheid country, which is the farthest thing from the truth. As I'm sure you're aware that, the Arab citizens who live in Israel have all the freedoms. They're on in Knesset, they're on the Supreme Court, they have freedom of speech, far more so than they do in virtually every Arab country that exists there. But there's this idea that they need to be brought to heel, like, say, South Africa was. That was kind of the model, and, the apartheid comparison that people make. And it's a place where the left has lined up with the Islamists, which we call the red-green axis, that takes place, and it's on campuses. There's a lot of pressure on musicians and Hollywood people to boycott Israel, to not go give performances there, and it's just really, I would call it just vicious anti-Semitism. It really is what it is, and so a lot of states have recently passed laws that says we're not going to contract with businesses that practices BDS, and so the ACLU. This is one of the things that Alan Dershowitz talked quite a bit about, how the ACLU has really just become this. He called them the villainous organization, because they've lined up with this idea that what these states are trying to do is prevent free speech, that people shouldn't be able to criticize Israel, but that's not what it's about at all. It's about not being able to discriminate against Israel. Just, they can say whatever they want to say. And so Congress recently, in the Senate, they passed this bill, even though like 23 people voted against it, to give the states protection when they do pass those sort of bills, which I believe 26 states have now passed, and I think this is pending in the House. But so that's kind of where that issue stands, and we did discuss that quite a bit during our symposium. And again, all of this symposium can be watched on our website, ccnationalsecurity.org. There's some great panels, and Dershowitz's speech, he really ripped into the ACLU, an organization that he pointed out he used to be on the board of. But, now, like I say, he said they're in the hands of radical, hard leftists. That's his terms, not mine. And so, anyway, that's kind of what's going on with BDS.
Well, Rick, we've got Rick Trader, our executive producer, on the other side, and I know he's got some questions for you, Roger, so I'm going to send it to him and let him go ahead.
All right, Nasser, good talking to you.
You too as well, Roger.
Our guest this segment is Roger Aronoff. He's the executive director and editor of the Citizens Commission on National Security. Good friend of the program, longtime friend of the conservative Commandos. Roger, great to speak with you again.
Rick, great to be with you again. Been too long.
It has been. It has been a while. We missed you, Roger. Roger, in your article, you talk about a resolution in the U.S. House of Representatives that was initiated by Democrats, embarrassed under the pressure because of an increasing body of anti-Semitic utterance from Congressman Omar, the freshman senator from Minnesota. Give us your reflection of the comments, number one, the comments that Representative Omar said, and then the Democrat reaction to it.
Yeah, she's a congresswoman. She actually took Keith Ellison's seat, and that, showing that this really existed in the party even before this recent group of freshman congressmen came in, where he had an alliance years ago with Louis Farrakhan, and very noted anti-Semite, and so these people came in and they've said some really awful things about. They talked about how it's all about the Benjamins, is one of her comments. That the
yeah. What do you think she meant by that? Could you give our audience? Roger. One of the things I say constantly here at Conservative Commandos is I learn so much from our guests. And when I heard this comment about the Benjamins, I'm trying to think, what did she mean by that? Tell us about the Benjamins.
Well, there was a movie, it's all about the Benjamins. Benjamins mean $100 bills, so it's all about the money. And her point was that these people are getting money from Israel and from AIPAC to support Israel. and that's what it's based on. That was her implication. It's like, put some money out, and these people, the Jews especially, will go for it, and so this is what she was implying, and she talked about other things. The Jews have a hypnotic spell, and over much of Congress, and so she's made a number of references along those lines. And really, when you go back farther, and before she knew she was going to be a national figure, it's even worse than that. And then the other one, Rashida Tlaib from Michigan, and then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, has built up a little bit of a record herself for saying things like that. So,
I love her. I love her. She gives us so much to talk about on a daily basis here.
It's true.
Roger Aronoff, she's the gift or the gaff that keeps on gafting and giving. We have so much fun with her. Roger, you also write in your article about this resolution. Sadly, most Republicans supported the watered-down version. However, one congressman who's a friend of this show, who was willing to criticize this charade, was Louis Gohmert of Texas, who called out Congress for what was going on. Could you talk about that, please?
Yes, and that clip, the video clip of Louis Gohmert talking about it, is in my piece, so you can see it, and it was just fiery, and he just got up there and basically made the point that this resolution was something brought up by Democrats. The idea was to condemn anti-Semitism and to name Ilhan Omar by name, but it ended up, once they got into committee, then they threw in everything, so it's against hatred of anything and everything. So it's kind of completely watered down. He says, so I'm going to vote against this thing. But I feel that most of the Republicans voted for it because they were afraid if they didn't, they would be, on CNN would be out there saying, oh, he refused to condemn hatred, and
the old double sword, as it were there. Hey, Roger, I wanted to bring up another point you made in your article. You said the conference was timely as a new peace plan from the Trump administration is reportedly ready to be released shortly after Israel's national election. And I wanted to bring up the Israel election. The last time Bibi Netanyahu was out or up for re-election, that old Barack Obama really tried to interfere in that election. I was wondering if he's reared his ugly head there again in Jerusalem.
Well, if he has, I haven't heard about it, but wouldn't be surprised if there were some lefties, some Obama people pulling the strings with this attorney general, not the attorney general, but the minister from the Justice Department, who basically said, yeah, we're looking to indict Netanyahu. Now, it's going to take a while to do this, but, this is over a couple of issues that supposedly he did favors for certain news organizations in exchange for their support, and the third one had to do with him taking gifts of champagne and cigars, and so look, he denies any corruption in this, and the interesting thing is that he ended up not doing these favors for these news organizations while others did, and yet so we'll see what happens. I mean, the polls have been both ways. This other group,
well, will all this put off any potential peace plan?
Pardon me?
Will all this and the accusations made towards Netanyahu, can you foresee this forestalling any new peace plan being presented by the Trump administration?
As I was saying during the first part of this interview, I really don't see this being going any further than the previous ones, because really the bottom line is the Palestinians do not want to live side by side with a Jewish state. They want, as they keep talking about, from the river to the sea, and that's how they envision Palestine being liberated, meaning taken over by them. They want 5 million so-called refugees, the right of return, which is never going to happen. Again, while Hamas controls Gaza, there's no deal to be had, and Jerusalem is not going to be offered under a Netanyahu administration. I think Trump is, he thinks he's a great deal maker, and he's done some great things, no question about it. But on this, I think it's kind of a fool's errand, because they're going to fail on this, and they may try offering a whole lot of money to the Palestinians to get them to go along with it, but in the end, I don't see this succeeding any more than any of the other attempts, and even has a much less chance, in my opinion. And it could be harmful, might be a difficult one for the Israelis to accept. Even the Palestinians may finally get wise and say, yes, we'll take this, and then just kind of start from there, pocket that, and then go from there, which I've been surprised that they haven't done in the past. But it's pretty clear that they like the situation as is, claiming to be victims of an occupation that doesn't exist. And
hey, Roger, we only have another minute, and I wanted to ask you about another point you have in your article. You're writing here, Iranian-backed Hamas began launching rockets from Gaza towards Tel Aviv this week, the first time in 5 years. Can you make a connection about the Hamas being emboldened by the actions of these 2 or 3 congresswomen who are supporting Palestine and disrespecting Israel, if you will? Is there any connection there? Can you think, Roger Aronoff?
I couldn't make such a connection. I mean, I condemn both acts, but to connect them, look, they've been firing rockets. It's just they've been generally not firing them toward Tel Aviv, the most populated city in Israel, and but who knows, what the motivation of the people that did that day, whether that was inspired by what's going on here. I couldn't make that connection, but I certainly condemn the act.
All right, Roger Aronoff, Executive Director and Editor of the Citizens Commission on National Security. Roger, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. As you said, it's been a while since we've had you on. I know you have been getting the Citizens Commission on National Security together. We want to thank you for joining us. Roger, please tell our audience how they could find out more about the Citizens Commission on National Security and keep up with what you do.
Thank you so much. Yes, you can go to ccnationalsecurity.org. That's CC for Citizens Commission, nationalsecurity.org. Sign up to receive our emails. Not quite daily yet, but we're building that up, and but there's a lot of good stuff, articles by Alan West and Claire Lopez and others on there that I think you'll really like, the articles that we've been putting out there. And support us financially if you can. We're really trying to do some great stuff for this country, and in building on the national security and strengthening the national security of this country. That's our goal. Take a look at our members. It's quite an impressive list. And Rick, thank you for what you're doing. You've been working so hard at this for so many years, and I have great admiration for you.
Thank you so much. Roger, we got to run, but thank you so much. Take care and God bless.
Thank you. Bye-bye.